Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of 5 Elements of Success Player Development Series. I'm Roger Knick, your host and founder of Junior Golf Hub. We've got a special announcement. We're going to be live this week at the Junior Golf Hub home headquarters here in Ridgefield, Connecticut. Due to the storm we had last week, we got a little wiped out, so a little electrical issue. So just want to let you know we're going to be here live at our home headquarters here in Ridgefield, Connecticut. So, you know, a little different here this week, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay out there for you guys as well. So again, as always, we want to keep it interactive. Make sure you're sending your questions, your comments, your anything that you want about junior golf. Please send it in to 5 Elements at the Golf Performance Center, or add questions or comments to our YouTube chat as well. So look forward to getting those so we can help you reach your ultimate goals. I'm here in the studio this week with Dennis Hillman. He's going to do our recap this week, our director of coaching, and also happy to have back here live with Ted Swartwood with Junior Golf Hub. So thanks coming in this week. And
yeah, thanks for having me.
It's on your home course. So.
It is. I'm happy. I didn't have a very long commute this morning. So
exactly. So it's all good. But again, a great show this week. We're going to be talking about the landscape out there, what you need to do for a college process. So really excited about that. We have our pop quiz coming up this week, and the answer to this, send it in to YouTube chat. Also looking to enter. I'm sorry, they're pointing here. What do you want me to do? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong camera here. So anyway, pop quiz this week. It's what's the easiest way for college coaches recognize you by, or what's the easiest way for you to be recognized by a college coach? So send in those answers. We got this yardage book here. We're going to be giving out to the best answer, or I'm sorry, the correct answer, and also who's pulled out of the hat there by Andrew. So we're looking forward to giving this away. So it's going to help you with your yardage book cover there. So you're really nice. I think it's by Sunfish. It's one of our partners. So really happy to give this out to the Junior Golf Hub. So anyway, last week, Dennis, we can do a little recap.
Sure. Yeah. Last week we talked about the junior golf tournament landscape, and we talked about building a winning tournament schedule. How you can use the Tournament Finder feature on Junior Golf Hub to help yourself build that schedule. We talked about level 1, 2, and 3 tournaments and the difference between those, and understanding the skill challenge ratio, and how to build that schedule based on where you are in your development. Level 1 and 2, continue to play those if you haven't won yet, and try to step outside your comfort zone from time to time. And if you can get in those level 3 events, certainly test yourself out there. We had Rick Dowling from the Junior Golf Hub tune in live from Pinehurst at the high school national championship last week, and give us some color on what's going on down there with a lot of juniors playing their first level 3 event. So that was exciting. Danny Dolan from Junior Golf Hub, he tuned in from Denver at the Nota Begay 3 regional event out there, and so that's a new series, which is really exciting. They actually have level 1, 2, and 3 levels. If you can continue to progress through that, you'll be able to see all 3 levels there, and so we're really excited about showcasing that this year.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Obviously, we've got a lot of changes going on in the landscape when it comes to college golf and how juniors are going to be recruited. So, Ted, I know with you and Rick, we've got a special guest as well. So,
yeah.
Danny Randolph from the Johnson & Wells is going to be on a little bit later.
Yeah, very excited to be talking to obviously Rick but Danny as well. Danny's down in Florida right now, and Rick is going to help us out. We receive questions all the time from parents. More so now with this crazy situation we're living with. But we kind of summarized the questions as best we could, and we're going to go through them here today. And our first question is, basically, how have the recruiting rules changed?
Yeah. So, Rick's going to answer that.
Yeah,
so
Rick.
So, Rick, if you can answer that question. So, how the recruiting rules have changed. So, please, if you could comment on that.
Hey guys, yeah. So in the wake of the virus, the NCAA kind of made some rule changes to level the playing field when it comes to recruiting for programs. So Division I enacted a dead period immediately, and then over time it was extended many times. So right now Division I is in a dead period until the end of August 31st. And if people don't know what a dead period is, it's basically a stretch of time where coaches are not allowed to have in-person contact or any sort of evaluations on the golf course or at a camp. with any prospective student athlete. However, the misconception is that they can't do anything else, but in reality, the coaches can certainly manage relationships, communicate with athletes via phone call, email, and we've heard that coaches are actually using things like Skype and FaceTime more frequently than they ever have. Division II, go ahead, Roger.
I was just going to say, that was one of the things I heard from a few coaches here recently about how, they've had to brush up their skills on Skype or Zoom, and they've been doing a lot of kind of their communications through that, and just watching players as far as, what their tournament scores are. So they are active, in behind the scenes, if you will, even though they may not be at the tournament. I think one of the things we want to make sure the audience knows is that they're out there, they're still watching, they're still looking for anything they can on the student athlete on what they're doing, i.e. their profiles, or they're doing practices or working with the coaches and so forth, what they're doing.
Yeah, the profile is a great home base for the athlete and the coach to connect. But yeah, coaches have been forced to get creative with their recruiting, and as myself, I talk to a lot of the parents and athletes who use the hub, and the Skype and FaceTime has been huge, because how do you have a relationship with a coach that you've never met and know how he's going to be or she's going to be as your coach during this time? It's really important to get as much of that communication, get to know the person really well. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so, Rick, wouldn't you say that's one of the most important things when it comes to getting a young athlete recruited at a school is those personal relationships they start to have with coaches, even prior to them coming on campus? Because I know here at GPC we've had so many of our athletes really be recruited because of those relationship building process over time. Doing reaching out as a freshman, reaching out as a sophomore, and cultivating that relationship prior to them maybe even having good golf scores.
Yeah, being able to manage a relationship with programs and many coaches at a young age or a middle-aged high school is a really important sign for to stand out as a student athlete. Coaches really look for people who can do that, and that only puts them in a good situation. Instead of, sometimes we see parents and athletes get behind the 8 ball when the timeline kind of gets shrunk later on, junior year, senior year. But if you can start earlier, be proactive, be very open and transparent, maybe try writing handwritten letters, calling, frequently updating the coach via email. You'll develop those skills over time, and you'll become a pro at it. And the sooner you do it, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I know you guys at the Hub have done a really good job with, that's really the checklist, right? I mean, if they just had that checklist in front of them, they would know to do all of these things, right? So I think that's something that's been really, really good on the Junior Golf Hub. Yeah, the checklist can really serve as the backbone for you.
Yeah. And you can use the app. Like we said, use the home base. Junior Golf Hub has all the content in there, education to keep you in check. It has the tools for you to execute on all the advice that we give you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the easiest ways to be recognized by a college coach is really, creating their profile in the Junior Golf Hub and following that checklist and creating that relationship, right?
Yeah, you can certainly do it yourself if you're armed with knowledge and you're prepared with advice and education, and then you have the tools to execute on that knowledge. So if you have the checklist, you have the knowledge, and then you have the Junior Golf Hub tools to help you execute on that knowledge. And then from there, it's just a matter of effort and being on top of the process.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things about it is now that with our Junior Golf Hub app, they can have it on their phone and they can download it. What a wonderful thing is right there in their pocket to be able to use that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The app is phenomenal. It's really easy.
Yeah, intuitive. Just makes it life easy for everyone.
Yeah, that's exactly why we made it that way.
Great.
So Roger, on the D2 front, I explained D1. D2 is in a little bit of a different situation. It's in a quiet period. So technically it's very similar to a dead period where they can't go evaluate a student athlete. However, they can communicate via email, phone call, Skype, FaceTime. But at some D2 institutions, if the campus is open, you can actually go to the campus and have an in-person contact with the coach. That's the small difference between D1 and D2 right now. And both of those periods will be ending on August 31st, as of right now.
And what about D3, Rick? What's the impact there?
Yeah, D3, NAIA, and junior colleges made no restrictions. Yeah, there's no changes to the timeline. They are basically in a normal period where they can be out recruiting, conducting in-person visits, and all that kind of stuff, if the campus is open and all these different things align.
So maybe a message out there to a lot of our student athletes and parents would be is if you're considering a D3 option, especially academically, and they want to keep their educational process going following next year, it may behoove them to reach out to these D3 schools and get them seeing them, watching what they're doing, at least get their career or that next step started, correct?
Yeah, as Danny will probably touch on the next thing we talk about, you're going to have to widen the lens. You have to keep your eyes open, keep an open mind, because the landscape has changed drastically. You're going to have to readjust your list, look at different schools in a different light, perform more research again. So you kind of have to hit the reset button.
Yeah, it's a different landscape. And listen, Rick, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on what's out there, what the rule changes are, and obviously you guys are all over it and making sure you're on top of the newest and the greatest rule changes that are out there. So keep up the great work, and thanks for joining us. We're gonna bring in Danny, who's actually our coach that you just referred to, and talking about the team process and what that impact is and what's happened there. So Danny, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, and the question for Danny is, along the Rick laid out what the rules are and stuff like that. So now we're going to talk to a coach who's certainly been impacted by these rules.
Absolutely, no question. So, Dennis, I know we were talking about this with our players in-house of, hey, expanding their list and going through that and looking at it a different way and potentially even looking at the whole gap year situation differently than we've thought about in the past. I mean, there's a real reason for that.
Yeah, no question. It looks like Danny's tuned in, but I'll just say briefly, I think, all the years of hard work that, these kids have put in, and you guys out there, you've got to put the work in on this side as well, and I think right now it's probably harder than ever, so gap year can go a long way to helping their development.
Yeah. Well, hey, Danny, I see that you're on now, so welcome to the show. And I know it's tough, and I know you're fighting that 104-degree heat out there in Florida, so again, appreciate you taking the time out to join us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Danny, I know that you're Johnson & Wells, the head men's golf coach there. I know this whole COVID and what's going on in the landscape right now has definitely changed what's happening. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on with your team and how it's impacted the team and where it's headed?
Yeah. I mean, COVID's been something that obviously has affected many people in many different ways, and for us, as an institution, we're actually going to close our Miami campus, and so we won't be having a season this year as a final season, and the campus will close in June. So that's something that we're dealing with. So kids are, young men are obviously trying to transfer, the ones that were on the team and preparing to come back or transferring somewhere, and then the ones that were incoming, whether that was a first-time freshman or a transfer student, have to find somewhere else to go. So we've been dealing with that for about the last 5 weeks, and it's just very real. And I think that leads into a lot of things that I'm sure you've talked about today. Is what are people trying to do, where they're trying to go, and it's really just a lot about supply and demand. Where there's schools that are closing or programs that are being shut down, and those players are looking for some place to go, and there's only so many places to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you said, and it's unfortunate to hear that your program and obviously the school and the campus is shutting down there, but that's the reality. And to your point, there's a lot of reshifting of these young people and where do they go. I know it's obviously really real for you guys and what's going on, but how are you, if you look at this, how is that going to really affect the competitiveness of teams and how the makeups of teams are going forward. And I'm sure you're contacting coaches right now to help some of these young players, find spots and transfer. And I know you got the transfer portal going on and trying to help them through that. But tell us a little bit more from your perspective on that as a coach and obviously a mentor of these young people of how that's working.
Yeah. Well, I think what's going to happen first is, you have good teams in places closing or shutting programs down. So the better players are going to go to other teams that are already really good. So, good teams are going to become even better. Mid-level teams are going to be better because somebody's going to go there. So I think a competitiveness is going to be that much more. Another thing, too, is you have a situation where some people may not be able to find someplace right away just because there isn't spots. However, I have found, as I've talked to a lot of coaches in the last month, is teams that used to have 7 players on the team now are going to have 10. People who used to have 8 are now going to have 12. So there's more opportunities for people to play, but they are going to go to bigger schools. And then another thing that I found as well is, people don't always know what their budget is right now, whether that's scholarship or operating. So, the coaches are a little bit cautious as they go through the whole process. And also, I'm trying to explain to my guys that they may not have a scholarship their first year, even first 2 years, because the school just may not have it available because of what's all gone on. And so you may have to go somewhere and pay a little bit your first couple of years, as you go through this.
Yeah, and now on that note, and I know, again, tough decisions that have to be made here by all, but, how many of those guys or players that may, benefit from even a college gap year, if you will, maybe taking a year off and really focusing, working on their games, obviously keeping some classes going potentially, but, in order to maybe benefit them later on in that transfer process?
Yeah, I've actually talked to some guys about that gap year as well, especially if you haven't been able to put a lot of college rounds together. I think taking a gap year and being able to play in as much as you can during that time frame would be very beneficial to a lot of people. Let's say someone goes and plays in a bunch of minor league stuff or junior tournaments or amateur events, whatever term you want to put on it. And they put together a lot of good scores. Let's say they play 20 rounds and they play really well during that time. Then you become kind of re-recruited. You can sell yourself again through that process now that you're 19, 20, 21 years old, as opposed to 15, 16, 17 when you're trying to be recruited by schools at that age.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you see a maturity happen for the young players as well, on and off the golf course. Their games mature, and now with we're seeing the whole PGA thing. That's an opportunity that if they're looking at this as, hey, their ultimate goal is maybe to try to make it on tour or one of the tours out there, it maybe incentivize them to take that time to work on their game, maybe come back and find that D1 program that will create that eligibility for them.
Correct. And if you put yourself in a position to play well, then you have that opportunity. And it's PGA Tour U is a great thing. And if you're able to get into that mix, then obviously it really sets yourself up to move on as a professional and do something in this game as a career.
Yeah, and, I was wondering, and maybe, I don't know if you've heard this or maybe thought about this, but I was thinking about some of these seniors who have that extra eligibility, and again, even with some of your kids, they're going to have some eligibility because of the shutdown. Do they take that time off to kind of put themselves in that mix later on? Like you said, maybe working on their games and just getting sharper and being re-recruited, if you will, in that effort. And will we see a trend to that in some of these bigger schools that you might have kids that go, there's programs right now that haven't released whether they're going to get funded for that 5th year. Some of them are not participating in it, but wouldn't it be a kind of a interesting thing if kids started going, I'm going to take a gap year my senior year and then come back and play just to kind of have that opportunity?
Oh, I think so. I mean, everything's on the table right now, and young people just need to look at all different kinds of options. This is way different than it was 6 months ago. It's way different than when they were recruited, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So I think everybody needs to look at it individually and what can allow them to be the best, version of themselves as a golfer as time goes on. So that, I think all that is up in the air, and it's going to be really interesting to hear people's stories down the line of how they started a college career and how they ended a college career.
Yeah, absolutely. That this whole idea that it's 4 continuous years somewhere and full scholarship, I think might be a thing in the past for a while anyway, for sure, and what we're doing with that. So Danny, in closing with you, and again, I appreciate you taking the time today. So some advice to the parents and players out there from your perspective as a coach and understanding this, many years in this, what would you give, what's the golden nuggets, if you would, to some of these parents and players?
Yeah, I'd really take a step back and do what's best for yourself, through it. I would look at a lot of different options, a lot of different avenues that maybe you didn't think about or look at before. But I think the biggest thing is getting onto a team that's going to allow you to, play, participate, but also just not looking for and making a scholarship a big deal. Because if you have 1 year left or 2 years left or something like that, financially you can probably afford to just go and be there for a couple of years, compared to looking at that full deal like you were doing, maybe as a 16-year-old or 17-year-old. And just getting yourself in a position to be on a team right now is a good thing. Because like I said, that supply and demand is very real, and people are struggling to find just even a team to be on.
Yeah, and maybe one other thing, maybe Ed, I'm going to go back to the gap year. Have you talked to any parents, from your perspective, and saying maybe right out of high school or maybe transitioning from high school to college, thinking about that gap year? Have you heard that, or have you talked to anyone about that as well as a good option?
Yes, I've definitely thrown that out. I think another thing too that's a good reason to have a gap year is if you have college credit built up. So let's say you have 15 hours that you're going to come in with, or 30 hours, which is basically your whole freshman year, that you can afford to take a gap year academically, not just athletically. And so that's important to know as well. How much do you have transferring in as a first-time freshman? But yeah, we definitely talked about those things. And then, but the main thing is going out and playing, and make sure you play in a ton of events so those coaches can see, what you're capable of doing during that time. You can't just sit and wait and then hope for something to occur. And also just selling yourself back to those coaches, through it, because they're looking for players. They're going through it as well, but it's all new to them too. And so just having patience with them, because they don't have nearly the answers that they used to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Danny Randolph, Johnson and Wells, hey, thanks for joining the show today. And, good luck down there and good luck in the future. Please stay in touch. We'd love to, have you future on future shows and so forth. So, stay in touch. Get cooled off there. I know 105, 104, that's pretty hot. So, again, thanks so much for joining the show. Good. So Ted, when you're really thinking about this, what should we be doing now? And if I want to try to play college golf, what should I be doing? What advice?
Well, the first thing that we should be doing is Junior Golf Hub. You want to get on the hub.
Yeah, it's probably one of the easiest ways to get recognized.
I would put that at the top of the list. Yeah, for sure, no question about it. But it's amazing. You build your profile on the hub. And you can find all these things that you're maybe not thinking of right now. And right now, you just heard from a current college coach who said, you got to be a little more proactive. Rick said the same thing. Think outside the box a little bit. And the hub helps you do that. Play in more tournaments. We've heard that a couple times now. So with our tournament finder, build your schedule. When you do that and you're following a school on the hub, that coach gets notified. Right. So you register for a tournament, he gets a notification. Right. You play in a tournament, those scores get instantly uploaded to your profile. The coach sees them, so he knows you're active. Take our self-assessment. We've talked about that in the last 5 or 6 episodes. The self-assessment's important. Coaches see that you take it, they know that you're committed.
Right. And not only that is that you get a chance to see where you are, so you continue to build your schedule and build your skill sets. I mean, so Dennis, I know you talk about that a lot at GPC, and so what are you doing right now with your players at GPC about the whole college process? Because it is, uncertainty out there.
Yeah, I mean, on my side, I'm focused on their development, obviously, and making sure they understand kind of where they are and, how hard this is. And, a lot of our juniors do have big goals of college golf, beyond college golf. So, just reminding them it is a long journey. It's a big commitment. But they do need to be, working on this side, thinking outside the box, reaching out to coaches. Handwritten notes are always great. So it may take an extra effort, and there's a lot to be learned from that sometimes, from that adversity. So really just making sure they have a good plan, they're consistent with executing their plan, And part of that plan is, all the communication and reaching out to coaches. So.
I know one of the things that you have a tough time with as well, with young players not realizing that just because they're not playing in a ton of events, or maybe their scores aren't there, but just getting them to continue to have that habit of reaching out to coaches and letting them know what they're doing, whether it's they're doing a certain program that's going to give them credit for college, or maybe it's just a community service program, or they're working on their game, practicing, what are they doing with their coach. That's important too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's it's a reflection of what you may find in life if you don't end up on tour, going through trying to get a job. I mean, sometimes you just have to be really persistent, and coaches will appreciate that you're, even if they're not responding, if you're really interested and you continue to communicate and reach out and show what you're doing and show your progress, eventually you'll start to get responses. So it may not be as easy as you want it to be, but you just got to be consistent.
And that's one of the things right now. So it's harder than ever, really, to maybe get that opportunity out there, right? So what should we be doing, with this current situation with the pandemic?
Yeah, well, in talking to some college coaches over the last few weeks, a lot of these guys they're thinking outside the box as well. So it's not just the players, it's the coaches too, with Skype and FaceTime. But they're allowing their team captains, some of their players, to talk to some prospective students. Even though you can't get to the campus, you can still talk to a player who can give you their experience. Because part of this recruiting thing is, you have to look at the golf, you have to look at your academics, but you have to look at what do you expect out of your overall experience.
Right.
It's going to be different. College campuses are different. The football teams aren't playing football. You can't go from dorm to dorm. So you have to manage your expectations. There are 2,204 college golf programs out there.
Right.
If you want to play college golf, I feel very confident in saying, I said this last week, that you can find a program. Competitive college golf is competitive college golf. And just manage your expectations and stay consistent in talking to coaches. Again, call the coach up and say, hey, can I talk to one of your teammates? Yeah. That's going to be a very proactive question in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah.
And so the more things you can think of like that, the better.
Yeah, and let's not forget, there's club golf. If the schools are open, there's club golf opportunities. Even if the school isn't fielding a varsity team, there's club golf opportunities out there that, maybe the coaches will see them playing and they're out there participating. Yeah. And I hear a lot of schools right now, top D1 schools, are even thinking about, hosting, the self-controlled tournaments, based on, the players, putting these tournaments on themselves. It's something I thought about doing. Maybe the Junior Golf Hub is, creating a tournament series around here for college kids who are looking for opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, college club golf has really taken on, and it's growing, and it's really amazing. It's a very grassroots effort. It takes basically one student to have the motivation and commitment to start it, and that's literally how it's gotten started.
Yeah, so well, we've got a good partner in that.
Yes, we do
as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And it's become very competitive as well. I mean, some really good players, and definitely quite a few stories of, as you're saying, players on club golf that do end up getting recruited. Coach takes notice, and so definitely those stories are definitely a great option.
Yeah. So before we get into our question and answers here, but this past week we had the PGA, the first major of the year. Kind of felt a little different, didn't it? I mean, here we are, at the end of the summer with the PGA, and had a young winner. And I think one of the things that he talked about was his plan of where he wanted to go to school. And obviously, it's only 7 years removed. He's 23 years old, 17. He was a high school senior, so he was just 6 years removed from that experience. But he was talking about in his interview, or one of his post-round interviews, about his plan of getting to where he wanted to be in college. And I know, Dennis, you talk a lot to the players at GPC about, it's not let me see how good I get and I'll see where I go. It's really I'm planning to go these places or this place, right?
Yeah, the goals, the vision, the plan to get there, that all comes first. We ask that question all, what are your goals? Well, if I get good enough, I want to play college golf, but that if's probably not going to happen unless you make up your mind. You set down those goals, you write them down. You spend time visualizing, and you continue to work towards that. You have a plan that actually can get you there, and the guidance. So, yeah, you definitely have to make up your mind first.
Yeah. Ted, anything else before we get to the question and answers from the Junior Golf Club side of things, or your perspective? Obviously, you're a college player, and you did quite well, and you went out and tried to make it on tour. So what obviously it's changed since, again, we talked a little bit last week about on tablet. They
I had my chisel out.
So what are you seeing now, and what would be your best advice to the
well, what I would say is recruiting. Golf's a hard game, right? It takes passion, it takes commitment, and we can all agree on that. But recruiting has also always been it's a hard game. It takes commitment, it takes passion, and it's always been that way. Now this pandemic has made it harder. Yeah. So you got to answer the bell, right? And the first step, probably the easiest step, is to get your profile up on the Junior Golf Hub.
Yeah.
Because if parents are wondering where to go, start there. And then if you have questions, you can contact us. There are ways to contact us via chat or email or even the good old telephone like I did for my college recruiting days. So understanding that recruiting is hard and that it's a job. So unless you're out there shooting 65 or 68, the coaches aren't going to come knocking on your door. So you do have to work at it a little bit, and that's okay. And again, through our app, we make it as easy as possible to reach out. And if you don't hear from coaches, as you said earlier, that's okay. Keep trying, because one of these times you're going to find something, or the coach is going to have a spot open and he's going to remember, wow, that was the person who really wanted to come here, and let me get back with them. So just be consistent, persistent, keep the passion,
Yeah. And we'd be remiss, and there's other options out there for you. We're not going to say we're the only option. Junior Golf Hub is the only option. You got to think about, there is the Junior Golf Scoreboard. You've got the AJGA Coaches Corner. You've got Golf Week. There's options out there, but our goal is to make sure that we're trying to help you reach your ultimate goal. We know that there's very few options out there like the Junior Golf Hub that create more things in your profile, more interactive things that show your player development side of things to coaches as well. So kind of think about those, and by all means make sure you've got a profile in all of those areas, because the more it's out there, the more people are going to see and recognize you. And you do something special in the Junior Golf Hub and it's on your profile, then we're going to definitely see that, especially on the player development side of things. So to make sure you're looking at those as well. So with that being said, Andrew, we probably have some questions coming in.
A lot of good questions this week. We still have Rick on the line to help answer a few. So
good.
Our first is from Brad from Dallas, Texas, and his question is, considering the limitations on communications between student athletes and coaches prior to their junior year, what specific advice do you have for younger players?
Yeah, good. Hey, Rick, I think that's a great question for you to answer as our resident expert on that. So if you could, fire away.
Yeah, guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that there's a misconception that you will break a rule or that you're going across a line by communicating prior to that date. There is no reason why you can't introduce yourself to a coach or a program, or a number of programs for that matter, prior to that June 15th date. Yeah, you're not going to get a response, or you might get a auto response saying, I can't say anything to you, I'm sorry, I can, given the rules. But at least your name is in their channel. The other thing you can do is fill out their questionnaire. Each NCAA school, or any golf program for that matter, usually has a homepage on their website, which you can find the link for on their Junior Golf Hub profile. Fill out their questionnaire, get in their pipeline. So those are the two things I would do. Don't consider that rule a rule for the athlete and parent side. It's more for the coaches to follow. And then fill out that questionnaire.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rick.
Next is, how much communication should junior athletes be doing? What's an appropriate level of communication?
Yeah, Dennis, give us some advice.
Yeah, I think there's probably no right answer, but I think it's probably certainly more often in general than most juniors are doing. Certainly giving an update once a month to somebody you've reached out to, and just continuing once a month, or maybe twice a month, I would say, somewhere in that range. And a lot of our juniors will express, hey, I'm not hearing anything back, I don't want to bother them, but it's just part of the deal. You have to continue to reach out.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I'll tell you that one of the kids that I've coached years ago, he had his top 2 programs. He wrote a note to the coach every single week until he responded. He didn't have a spot. He wore the coach down, and he finally got an acceptance to come down for a visit. Loved the kid because of his perseverance. and he got him on the program, and he ended up becoming an All-American there. So, it's not too much if you're really passionate about that school or where you want to be. I think you just got to go for it.
Do you know if the NCAA will be making any accommodations for future recruits?
That's a good question, Rick. I don't know if you're seeing anything out there. I think it's still uncertain of what's going to go on with the NCAA.
Yeah, I think what Danny was saying, that there's going to have to be some serious decisions made over the next couple weeks or month or so on the NCAA side, and you might see some of that. The only thing that I've seen that institutions and even the NCAA has done is lessen the requirements for admission into schools. So the number of things that you have to check off to be a student athlete at the college level was a little looser this recruiting class, and then also the ones that are looking currently. You might see that evolve into more things, but that's still to be determined.
Rick, are you alluding to maybe the standardized testing, things like that, as far as some things are being loosened up?
Yeah, I mean, the NCAA understands that, the well-being of their current student athletes is really important, but they also understand that there are many, probably more than that are trying to become student athletes. They're definitely addressing both parties, and one of them was, some institutions said we don't need the SAT, or the GPA requirements or the core curriculum requirements was a little looser.
Yeah, got it. That's great.
One thing I'll say about the NCAA too is I'm sure they're trying to figure out, they want to help, but the big question is financial, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we know college programs that have been cut. There's been, probably close to 20 college programs, 2 in the Ivy League alone, that have been cut. So the question comes down to money, just like it does for individuals. People lost jobs, they got furloughed, so it's the same. So if the NCAA makes a decision one way where they come in and they're gonna back the colleges and help them financially, that kind of levels the playing field. If they don't do that and it's left up to the colleges, it's going to be every man for himself, and it's going to be even crazier if you can believe that. So we're waiting. Everyone's waiting to hear from the NCAA.
Yeah.
And I'm sure. Whatever they decide, it's going to set off a frenzy of activity for sure.
Yeah, right. It's a business. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business. You got budgets, as Danny alluded to earlier. You got scholarship budgets and you got operational budgets. That this is all impacting that. So, yeah.
Our next question is: can you address the new NCAA 2023 rule that is going to allow student athletes to take compensation and not affect their eligibility?
Well, I mean, that's a new one. Rick, do you have anything on that?
That must be about amateur status.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's in the image and likeness category, which is more for your revenue sports. I don't think it'll affect golf as much. You will get people who are, world beaters entering college or become very good in college who might look at sponsor opportunities, and that might be a situation for a golfer to look at that rule. But I think that's going to affect more of the bigger sports. But that's also still being finalized, what the details of that rule and that topic will be.
Yeah, what I'll say on that topic is, the bigger schools are going to get bigger because, Texas can point to some very famous alumni, right? So they say, hey, come here and we can help sell your image to the local Chevrolet dealer. We can get you on TV,
to the major manufacturers.
Yeah,
right?
so I think that's going to be interesting to see what happens. But there's still a lot to be worked out there. I mean, there are a lot of people for it, and a lot of people against it.
Yeah.
So.
The last question is, how important is my high school golf team, more or less than the state or national golf association tournaments?
Yeah, I would say, high school golf, we certainly support all our juniors. A lot of them obviously play for their high school golf team. We think it's, obviously it was canceled this year, normally in the spring up here in the Northeast, but, ultimately you're not going to get recruited through your high school golf for the most part. Maybe, winning the state high school championship. But for the most part, you're going to get recruited based on your performance at regional and national events, those level 2 and 3 events.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Rick, you were just at the high school national championship invitational down in Pinehurst, which is a great event, which kind of plays right into this, and obviously trying to make high school golf a little bit more prominent as part of that process. So it's certainly, great efforts there being made to make it, worthwhile.
Yeah, high school golf is certainly on the rise, and that's an example of where resources and attention is being paid to those kids and that step of development. And Roger and Dennis, you guys know best. I mean, any opportunity to get better, develop as a golfer competitively or as a group, it's vital, no matter what it is. So I think high school golf is super important, but I would say that Dennis is right in saying that you would need to mix in other tournaments at the local, regional, national level to kind of bolster your resume.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Andrew, any other questions?
No more questions, but we do have a winner.
All right, we got a winner for the yardage book, right?
The winner is YouTube user C. Ander.
C. Ander, all right. Congrats, C. Ander. You'll get this. You're a winner of this Junior Golf Hub yardage book cover by Sunfish, I believe it is. So great product.
Just to be clear, the easiest way to get noticed by a college coach is build your profile on the Junior Golf Hub.
There you go. Great job, Ted. Well done. Again, Dennis, thanks so much for being on the show this week. Ted, you guys, Rick, Danny, also remotely, thanks so much. Really good, great information. Obviously, we wanted these, all the parents and all the players to go to the Junior Golf Hub, download the app, make sure you're getting this app on your phone, put it in your pocket, have all those schools and that resource right there at your fingertips. We want to make sure that you're going to get recognized, and again, trying to get you discovered by some of these schools and also discovering the right fit for you. So, download the app. It's really great. Next week, we're going to be talking about making more putts in tournaments, and then Dennis Hillman will be out on the putting green and learning how to make more birdie putts and hopefully get into contention. So we're going to talk about that next week.
That would be good.
So thanks so much. Again, as always, thanks to our sponsors, Ethan Allen Preparatory, achieving your greatness in the classroom, on the golf course, and in life, and the Junior Golf Hub. Again, make sure you're downloading that app. Junior Golf Hub is going to help you reach your ultimate goals and find that ultimate fit in college and hopefully change your trajectory of your life. So again, thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy your journey. Let's get after it.